One small crack does not mean that you are broken. It means that you were put to the test and you didn't fall apart. Good afternoon to one and all present here. Hi, Harshita J of St. Joseph College will be the MC for the day. I would like to call Bijila Mariam Varghese for addressing our gathering.
You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserves your love and affection. Wise words from the Buddha. Good afternoon to one and all present here today. On behalf of the whole NSS wing of St. Joseph's College, it is my great pleasure to present the welcoming speech. Firstly, I would like to invite our chief guest for the day, Ms. Jeromy Elisa George. We welcome you to this event, ma'am, and we're looking forward to hear your insights on the topic. Secondly, I would like to invite the principal of St. Joseph's College, Reverend Father Victor Lobo, and Director of Jayanti and Extension Services of Kristu Jayanti College, Reverend Father Emmanuel PJ. We are greatly honored by your presence. Thirdly, I would like to invite the coordinators of both the wings of NSS, Dr. Sridhar PD and Professor Prasad CN. We welcome you both, sirs, to this event. This webinar wouldn't be a reality with your constant support. Let me tell you a little bit about our speaker for the day. She started her career as clinical counselor of Nova IBI Fertility Center and later worked as the regional trainer for South India, as a counselor for Accenture, and currently she is working with Workplace Options as a clinical counselor and case manager, counseling clients from across the globe. During each of her stint with these organizations, she has been able to counsel individuals and couples. The range of issues addressed through the counseling includes relationship issues, family concerns, work-life stress and balance, emergency and risk cases including domestic violence, and suicidal ideations and tendencies. She was the expert panel speaker for an initiative by the Times of India and completed training sessions and guided imagery for over 700 employees. She is a clinical counselor and a case manager. She will also be starting off as a rapid response critical incident counselor next week. Finally, I would like to welcome each one of you who took the time to join us this afternoon. Hope you have a wonderful session. Thank you and have a nice day. Handing it over to Harshita.
Thank you, Bijila. The moment we have all been waiting for has come. Now, I would request our speaker of the day, Ms. Jeromy Elisa George, to take over the session.
Thank you, Harshita. Thank you, Bijila, for these kind words. Good afternoon to all of you all present on this platform, respected dignitaries, office bearers, and the organizers, and all the audience. A very good afternoon. First of all, I want to take this time to thank the organizers for inviting me to this gathering to give my 2 cents today. I'm very happy to be here. I consider this very special because this is also my first time addressing a group of college students. And it's even better because I'm a Carmelite. So St. Joseph's and Kristu Jayanti have always been a significant part of my college life. And I'm sure all of you sitting here would resonate with me on that. So today, as all of you all are aware, it's a very important day as we celebrate the World Mental Health Day. And I'm very happy to know that such esteemed institutions in the city is taking such initiatives to spread awareness and also invest in the mental health of their students. And you students, you play a vital role in our society. And as you may have heard in plenty of other talks, you are the future of this country. And don't worry, I'm not really trying here to shoulder you with any big responsibilities, but these are simply the facts, right? And before we begin today, I understand that this can be a long duration, a little too much, especially considering the weather around and the time. but just try to grasp whatever you can, whatever you're able to relate with. And during this time, I just have one request of you, that is, just be comfortable wherever you are. Of course, no one's going to know what you're doing behind these cameras, but just be true to yourself, be comfortable, and just grab a cup of coffee or tea, or glass of water. If you haven't had lunch, feel free to do so. Okay, so moving on to today's topic, titled Young Adults and Mental Health. This specific topic was chosen after a lot of deliberation and discussion with students of your own age group. When I was initially invited and asked to talk on this topic, I was very confused, honestly. I didn't know what to talk about because mental health in itself is an umbrella topic. So what I did was I spoke to one of my close friends who is a professor in another institution. And as per the inputs that I've received from her, what I understood is it's so difficult to talk about just one thing for this duration and leave you with information about that. So I will be addressing more than one topic today, and I'm more than happy to do it on this special day being observed as the World Mental Health Day. So to get to the basics, no arguments here. Mental health, it has been in the limelight for the last 1 year since the pandemic hit us. Of course, we all knew about mental health even before that, but in the last 1 year, it's gained a lot more attention than usual. And every other person is talking about mental health, being more aware, reading up more about it, etc. But what exactly is mental health, and how can we define mental health, or what comes under mental health? I want to put it very simple without complicating it. I'd like to define mental health as a state of mind where you are able to function efficiently on a day-to-day basis. Now, this means you're able to cope with any situation that comes your way, be it good or bad, because we just don't go through good experiences, right? So it's your state of mind which brings about your capabilities. So this definition in itself signifies how important mental health is through all phases of your life. It's not that mental health is important just for young adults or just for older adults or senior citizens or children. It is equally important for you to be able to function efficiently all through your life. Now, mental health includes different aspects, which is your emotional well-being, your psychological well-being, your social well-being. All the aspects put together is your mental health. Now, I'd just like to take 1 or 2 minutes to understand what your view about social media is, how social media affects your mental health, because that's one of the most important topics that I would be addressing today. If you could leave your views on the chat box, I would be happy to read that out. Your view about how social media is affecting your mental health. If there's any messages in the chat box, can one of the volunteers just read that out for me?
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have anything yet? I see something in the chat box. Tasmia Sultana says by comparing our lives with others. Yes, that's very important, Tasmia. That's very right. Social media is a double-edged sword. It helps us connect and explore more, but at the same time, it's very time-consuming and promotes comparison. True that. Social media, especially when it's something negative, affects me more and disturbs the positivity that surrounds. Absolutely. I think you all have highlighted some very important points that I'm covering today. So when we look at social media, of course, 99% of us are pretty much active on social media. But now by when I mention being active on social media, I don't mean to say that you become active only when you post something, but even just being a passive audience to the social media content makes us an active audience there, right? On a day-to-day basis, we spend at least 1 hour of our time on social media. It could be anything. It could be WhatsApp, it could be Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, watching different videos. It could be anything. And this 1 hour here is the minimum time frame that I'm talking about. I will give you my personal example. So according to my Instagram activity tracker, as of now, I spend about 2 hours out of my 24 hours on Instagram. Last year, around the same time, when I decided to check on my activity tracker for the first time, what I realized is that I was spending at least 3 hours and 45 minutes on a day-to-day basis. And from then to now, it took me a lot of effort and practice to bring it down to 2. In fact, I realized that it came down to 2 hours only 2 days before when I was preparing for this talk. So by stating this example, I'm not intending to give you any advice on reducing your screen time, but let's just focus on what is important here. Now, what's important here is this consumption. How is this consumption affecting your state of mind? Now, it's no surprise that social media has its own adverse effects on our state of mind. To make this simpler, let's look into an example. That there are at least some of you who loves plants, and the rest of us know at least how plants function, right? So in order for a plant to grow, we need to nourish that plant. We need to water it regularly, use a lot of fertilizers, ensure that there is enough sunlight for the plant, not too much sunlight, not too little, but just the right amount of sunlight. So only with all of these factors does a plant grow well. Same way, our mind, what we nourish our mind with is how our state of mind will be like eventually. So that being said, what you can reflect on is how do you let social media nourish you? Because like somebody mentioned, it's a double-edged sword. Social media is not always bad. There's a lot of goodness going around there. There's a lot. You can connect with people who are far away or near during COVID times. There are so many people who impart knowledge through social media platforms and emergency crisis situations. We've seen how people help each other out, right? So it's not always bad, but how are you letting your social media consumption affect you? Some of the ways that I've seen how social media has had an effect on mental health is through increased feelings of low self-esteem, affecting people's self-confidence, increased feelings of anxiety, homelessness, insomnia, because obviously we're scrolling through these social media when we're supposed to be sleeping. Digital burnout. So these are some of the common facts that I've come across. And just last Monday, I'm sure all of you came to know about it. There was an episode where some of the common platforms like Instagram, WhatsApp, and Facebook went down for a couple of hours, right? So during this time, what did you do? Did you constantly keep a tab on whether the apps were back up and running, or were you able to move on with your life, when you realized that the apps were down? Now, in the UK, there was a research conducted which showed that 16% of people experienced FOMO, or what we call as fear of missing out, and 15% of people felt lost, and 14% of people felt cut off when they did not have access to any of these platforms. So, from this research itself, we can see that half the population is simply dependent on social media. Now, apart from all the anxiety that we talk about, there is also some amount of stress that this causes. Now, when you post something on social media, we're always on the lookout for likes and comments. Obviously, this also works as a positive reinforcement, but through this number of likes and comments that we receive, there's some amount of dependency on that and some amount of stress induced because of that. And through constant exposure to social media, what is happening is we are also exposed to intimate details of somebody's life. And like a couple of them mentioned in the chat box, there is a tendency to compare our lives with the other person who's posting on social media, although it may not be the reality. Recently, I came across another grave problem where I came across this lead actress for an ongoing web series who was a victim of. So cyberbullying is another significant problem that social media has brought about. All these comments and comments that we most of the time receive, it's not always very pleasant and easy to take. And it has gone to an extent where people come or present with suicidal ideation, or to the extent where someone has attempted suicide. Something else that has come into light is the phantom vibration syndrome, which is nothing but the perception that one's mobile is vibrating or ringing when it is not. I myself have been in this place a couple of times. I don't know how many people will be able to relate to this, but you feel like you leave your phone in your pocket and you feel like your phone's vibrating. But in reality, when you look into your phone, it might not even be vibrating. And something similar to that is nomophobia, which is the stress due to not having access to your mobile phone. And now all our social media platform is in our mobile phone, right? So when you do not have your phone with you, what happens? Do you experience that stress? It's good to reflect on that question. So whenever you scroll through any social media, or if you are even just a passive participant there, just be aware and be cautious of what you're consuming. Because like I mentioned earlier, it's not always bad. There is a good side to it as well. So just be aware of what is the content that you are consuming. And most importantly, how are you letting your mind be nourished with that content? Some of the practical ways to reflect on this would be, number one, how would you feel about completely staying away from your social media handles? Would you be comfortable by staying away from, say, WhatsApp for 24 hours? Okay. Next thing is something that we all tend to do. Do you try to reach out for your phone as soon as you wake up? Now, that's what I do. I'm being very honest here. As soon as I wake up, I have my phone next to me and I'm reaching out for it to see what has happened in the time that I was sleeping. The next thing is, do you feel anxious if you're not able to access any of your social media platform? The good example, the recent example is last Monday, October 4th. What happened to you when you did not have access to Instagram, WhatsApp, or Facebook? What did you do during that time? Did you start feeling restless, anxious, or were you just comfortable and did you start initiating conversations with people around you? Next important thing to keep in mind is be aware of your self-talk. There are these constant thoughts that's going on in your mind. That is a self-talk that you're having with yourself. So what are you telling yourself when you see something on social media? Be it good or bad. What is this thought that is running at the back of your back? Very important to be aware and acknowledge what is there at the back of your mind. And finally, another important question to ask yourself is, how are you letting this usage of social media affect your relationships? Now, a common scenario that most of us come across in the house is, all the family members sitting. Nobody has an idea as to what each other is doing, but everyone is seen seated with their phones. Think about those times when you were probably at a cafe with all your friends. How many times did you take a look into your phone and spend maybe, say, just a minute or two? But even if it's a minute or two, you're losing out on that minute or two with the person that is sitting in front of you, right? So just try to reflect on these questions that I put across today, just to understand how you're letting social media nourish your state of mind, and how can you work towards improving your mental health while you're still being able to use social media. Like I said in the beginning, I'm not asking you to stop using social media, but while still being able to use social media, how can you kind of manage your state of mind and not let it affect you to a very large extent? Of course, try to limit your screen time. And when you try to limit your screen time, again, I'm just going back into my personal experience. Try to take it slow. Okay, so last year when I understood that I'm spending close to 4 hours on my social media platform, on Instagram, my immediate response, or the first thing that I told myself is, oh my God, Jeromy, how can you be spending 4 hours on Instagram? You need to cut it down to 1 hour. And I tried my best. But 1 week later, I found myself in the same loop. Probably say, I would have reduced 5 to 10 minutes, but it did not bring me down to 1 hour. So what I did was, I told myself 1 hour, just on spot is going to be very difficult for me because I'm so used to spending 4 hours. So my next goal was to bring it down to 3 hours and 30 minutes. And that way, after 2-3 weeks, I didn't have to keep a track of the time that I'm spending on social media. But eventually, my dependency on the social media kind of reduced. So what I did here was I broke down my goals. From 4 hours, now in a year's time, I've been able to bring it down to 2, and I'm very happy about that. So be kind with yourself, give yourself enough time and space to get used to the change, and pace it in such a way that you feel comfortable about it, and not just give yourself an unrealistic goal saying from 3 hours you bring it down to 1. That's not going to be possible. Sorry. The next thing is control your environment. By this, what I mean to say is limit your exposure to your temptations. While studying, if you're studying and you want to keep your phone away, keep your phone in a different room. Don't keep it anywhere close to you. Or even if you have it close to you, try to switch off the push notifications that tempts you to actually look into the phone. And these days, all the smartphones come with this option of digital well-being. So turn that on so that you do not have access to anything on your phone after a stipulated number of hours. Something else that you can work on is trying to replace your habits. Now, of course, reaching out for a phone during certain times is a habit, right? So instead of doing that, keep some ideas in mind. What I usually tell all my clients are try to explore different hobbies that you can engage in. There could be certain activities that you've been planning to do from a very long time, but you've not been able to do so because you do not have the time. If this time that you reach out for your phone, try to reach out for that activity that you plan to do. So replace your habit into something that is healthy and something that will be beneficial for you. Something very important for each of us, try to identify the potential of one-to-one conversations. um, I know in the last 1.5 years or 2 years, it's been very difficult to meet people and have one-on-one conversations like we did before. But when you're using a social media platform, sending a DM or sending a voice note, try to give a call or arrange for a meeting in such a way that so try to reflect on what this one-on-one conversations do. When you meet in person or talk and hear someone's voice. The next thing is try to discover the positive outcomes of using social media. Try to be aware of how this is impacting you in a good way. Keep those points in front of you and use social media just for that purpose, rather than reaching out for your phone when you feel bored randomly, or when you feel you're all by yourself. So just try to focus on what your goal is by using social media and just try to focus on that. And something, all this can be done on a day-to-day basis. We can practice it to a large extent, but something that has to be addressed is the root issues. Try to identify the need, or why are you dependent on social media to this extent. So that is the root cause that is making you depend on social media to this extent. So it's important to identify what is this root cause. It can be anything, it can vary from person to person. And if you feel that it needs you need help, you need to talk to someone about it, the root issue is something beyond what you can tackle, reach out and seek help. So this is about social media that I've discussed, which I feel is very important as young adults. As we go through this phase of our life, we go through different issues which can be contributing for us to kind of depend on social media and use social media to this extent. Now that we've understood how this has been affecting us, I'd like to bring your attention to something that has been very loosely used these days. The term anxiety. I'm sure a lot of you would resonate with me on that. I'm sure you would have come across people who have told you, okay, I'm feeling anxious now. I've been going through anxiety just on a day-to-day random basis. And I do not blame anyone. It's not anybody's fault that anxiety is being used so loosely without much awareness. It's simply because of the little amount of awareness around this subject. Before we proceed any further, I want to understand from you, what is your understanding of the term anxiety? If you could leave some comment in the chat box, I would be happy to read that out. Just your understanding of anxiety. The volunteers, if you could just let me know if you see something in the chat box.
Most of the people is suffering from anxiety, ma'am.
Yes, absolutely. Just, let me know what you understand of anxiety.
I think anxiety is a constant state of fear and tension which may or may not be triggered.
That's a great perspective.
Intense pressure on something.
Okay.
Anxiety is something you are too scared of, like during COVID, many people had went through it.
Yes, absolutely. COVID did induce a lot of anxiety.
Anxiety is stressful, which brings out fear in all situations.
Yeah.
Feeling tensed for a small reason with should not be considered even. Anxiety is equal to eagerness.
That's interesting. All right. Thank you so much for your responses. Also shows me that you're all pretty attentive to this session. That's great. So before we proceed further, understanding anxiety a little, I would just ask the volunteers to play a video for everyone to watch.
I'm joy. This is sadness. That's anger. This is disgust. And that's fear. We're Riley's emotions. Yeah.
Ma'am, you can continue now, ma'am.
Sure, thank you. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I was just going through the comments, and the last comment that I see is the movie Inside Out. It's a meaningful one. I agree with you. It's a beautiful movie. If you haven't watched it yet, please do take the time to and watch it sometime when you're free. So this small clip that I played from the movie was just to give you an idea of the different emotions that we go through, different feelings that we go through, and anxiety is also one of them. And as we saw in the clipping, each of the emotion was introduced with a situation, right? So the same way, anxiety is an emotion that you experience, is a feeling that you experience when certain situations call for it, especially like someone mentioned earlier in the chat, situations that can be triggering. Okay, now let me clarify here. If you were to ask me, how is it different from being scared? Okay, I'll help you with an example here. If you experience fear, or when you experience fear, or when you feel scared, it is mostly when you are exposed to a certain situation in the moment. Okay, for example, let's say somebody is scared of dogs. Okay, so if a dog comes in front of that person, then that person experiences fear, or that person is scared, and because the dog is in front of them, right? And that's when you experience fear. Okay, dog goes away, that person feels a little calmer and is able to move on. Of course, there is a lot of that goes on at that point in time. Maybe the heartbeat is faster, but you don't carry that experience with you after the incident. Okay, when you're exposed, then in that moment you're scared, that dog goes away, you move on with your life. Of course, the memory of that incident will be there, but in your day-to-day activities, you're able to concentrate, you're able to do everything else. You don't let that incident weigh you down. Okay, but of course, next time when you see the dog, you'll still feel scared. But anxiety can be like this. So you see the dog, you finish that episode, you go back home, you're still in that experience. You go to sleep, maybe you're not able to sleep. Next day you wake up again, you're unable to concentrate on your assignment, you're not able to concentrate in class, you're not able to do anything. It is affecting your day-to-day, causing you to think too much constantly about this. You're worried about it, you're thinking about what could happen the next time you see your dog. Will you still feel like this? All these confusions, all these thoughts, your body is still responding in such a way. That is when you call it anxiety. The difference between feeling scared and feeling anxious. I hope that's cleared out some doubts for you. And like anything else, anxiety is not always bad. Okay, anxiety to some extent, it helps you stay alert, be careful of what can come your way. It will help you be prepared for certain situations. It brings out your resiliency. However, it becomes a problem if you notice that anxiety is coming in way of your day-to-day functioning. That is when it becomes bad. If you see that, like I mentioned earlier, if you see that you're not able to function at all, you're not able to focus, you're not able to do anything, you're not able to sleep, you're not able to talk to anyone, that is when it becomes a problem. Okay, Now, what can make us anxious? It can stem from anything that is unfamiliar to you, a new situation. It can be because some things are beyond your control, not under your control. You can start feeling anxious. And with anxiety, the thing is, it's not limited to your thoughts alone. There are these constant thoughts at the back of your mind, so it's not limited to that, but it is also usually clubbed with a lot of physical responses. Now, some of the common physiological responses can be, the most common thing is fast paced heartbeats. You feel your heart thumping, and you feel like you're trembling, your hands are shaking. And something else that's common is breathlessness. You feel like there's a lump in your throat. You're not able to breathe suddenly. You feel like, okay, you're going through an asthmatic episode, or your palms start sweating. These are the common physiological symptoms of anxiety, but I want to remind you that it's not limited to these. It manifests in different ways for different individuals. Okay, so let's not limit our understanding of anxiety to this much. These are just on a general basis that I've spoken about. And along with this, of course, like I mentioned earlier, there is this constant worrying thoughts at the back of your mind. Okay, and most of the time, unfortunately, when we experience anxiety, it is ignored or it is brushed away. It is not adequately addressed. And if we need to address anxiety adequately, self awareness is the first step to this. Okay, with awareness, it is equally important that we acknowledge the experience of anxiety that we're going through. If there's no acceptance that we do not feel anxious, that we're uncomfortable with something, then the next step of managing anxiety does not even come into question. So how do we manage anxiety? Like I mentioned, first step, be aware of your triggers. Try to understand what are these things. It could be a situation, it could be a certain person, it could be an event that you're looking forward to, it could be a thought, it could be a picture of something, a memory of something. Try to identify what is it that is triggering this anxiety for you. And of course, ideally, we would say stay away from triggers, but that's impossible, right? So when you start feeling anxious, the most important step is acknowledge and allow yourself to feel anxious. Now, it is important for you to allow yourself to feel whatever feelings you go through, whatever emotions you go through, instead of keeping it aside. On a day-to-day basis, when I talk to my clients, one constant example that I give is because we all as humans want to feel difficult emotions, right? So one example that I use is an example of a water bottle. Say the bottle is 1 liter capacity. How much water will that bottle hold? It will hold only 1 liter. What happens if you try to keep filling it over and over again? It will only spill out, right? So in the same way, our mind is exactly like that. If we brush aside a specific a difficult emotion or feeling, we're only piling it up inside ourselves, and one day it's going to manifest in a way that we are not able to control it, right? So when you identify a difficult emotion, allow yourself to feel that emotion rather than throwing it aside or ignoring it at that point in time. And something else that I want to assure you is, whatever these feelings you go through, be it difficult ones or easy ones, happiness for that matter, it does not last. Any feeling that you experience, it changes on a day-to-day basis with the different kind of situations that you're exposed to. So even anxiety for that matter, it's not a permanent feeling, okay, that changes over time. The next thing is, to manage anxiety, try to have a comfortable or a familiar schedule. Try not to overwork yourself when you feel stressed or anxious. Try to take a break, try to slow things down for yourself. Remember how I mentioned that anxiety also stems from not being in control. So try to have a familiar schedule to your day so that you still feel in control. Time yourself, have familiar activities that you do on a day-to-day basis, so that you're under control to some extent. The next thing is, try to engage in physical exercises. Now, I know physical exercise is not something all of us might be okay with, but at least try to get some basic movement to your muscles so that the tension in your muscles are released. And also with physical exercises, there's a lot of good hormones that's released in your body. So make way and pave way for some release of tension in your body. And from here, once you start observing that your body also feels a little calmer, try to shift focus into your anxious thoughts. Okay. And the final step is to engage in journaling. Now, again, journaling is something that I recommend for a lot of clients. Journaling, even if you're not able to do it on a day-to-day basis, try to do it as often as you can. Now, what is journaling? Journaling is nothing but just making note of all the experiences that you go through, how you feel about it, and whatever you want to journal. And when it comes to journaling, again, something that I want to share with you is, journaling is not always limited to writing. Some people journal in art forms as well. So, find what you are okay with, what you are comfortable with, and try to engage in journaling as much as you can. Because, again, when you have these things tangibly in front of you, it gives you some mind space, and it'll also help you organize your thoughts better. These are some of the ways in which you can manage your anxiety better. But like I mentioned earlier, this is a disclaimer. It seems like there's a lot. Of course, it is a lot of information. It is important to remember that not everyone experiences anxiety or any emotion in the same way. It manifests in different ways for different individuals. So what I've shared today is just on a general basis, at least from most of the experiences that I've come across. And during this conversation or this discussion today, if somewhere you've had any concerns or that has alarmed you today, I would say it's important to know more about it. Feel free to reach out to a professional to understand more about it so that you can take this on a case-to-case basis. Okay. Heard a lot of overwhelming information about how social media is impacting, how anxiety is affecting you. Been triggering for some people. It may have been a general knowledge for some people. It goes both ways, right? Now, just to make it more lighter, something that I want to leave you all today with is about self-care. Now, self-care is nothing but anything that you engage in to keep yourself sane and safe. Again, self-care is all about prioritizing your needs, yourself in all aspects. It could be your emotional well-being, it could be your mental well-being, it could be your spiritual well-being, it could be your physical well-being. Just like, another example here is just like how you, I don't know how many of y'all own vehicles here, but for those of you who own vehicles or have come across your parents who own vehicles, you know that it is important to service the vehicles frequently and also run without fuel, and now we also have electrical vehicles which needs to be charged, right? So nothing runs by itself. It needs some amount of servicing done at some point in time. So for us also, it is very important to look after ourselves in order to function efficiently. And when it comes to self-care, like I said, it involves different aspects. It only comes down to you as to how you would like to define your self-care as. Now for me, self-care is when over the weekend I'm able to take some time off for myself, sleep well, get enough sleep, and I usually engage in painting. I paint a lot, so that is my form of self-care. I'm someone who also experiences anxiety to a large extent, so painting has been my way of coping through anxiety and taking care of myself, just not overwhelming myself with a lot of social situations where I don't have to spend a lot of energy. So that's my self-care. For some clients that I've come across, self-care is simply just taking care of their nails, or just going to a salon. And for some, it is just reading a book. So it's important for you to be able to identify what makes you feel better and regularly engage in that. And again, self-care, it's not I'm not saying spend 1 hour of doing something out of your 24 hours, but even if you can start off with just 15 minutes in a day looking after yourself, trying to do something that you love doing, that should be the start of something bigger. And over time, increase your time frame and try to spend more time with yourself and identify what is it that you like doing. With that, I'm coming to an end, bringing my talk to an end. Something else that I want to remind you is about counseling. I know it's got a lot of importance in the last 1.5, 2 years. Like I mentioned earlier, if you found any red flag or something that has been alarming through this discussion, I would definitely encourage for you to reach out to your college counselor or any counselor for that matter. Feel free to reach out and let them know what is going on and try to address this as soon as possible. And with that, I would like to end my talk. And I have a small video that I would like request the volunteers to play, please.
Our mental health and our physical health might seem separate, but in reality, how we are physically really affects our emotional health and well-being. Following trauma, normal routines of sleeping, eating, and exercising can be affected. Making healthy changes can seem overwhelming, but taking care of your health is a great way to help your recovery. A good place to start is to consider what aspects of health and well-being you really value. Maybe it's being connected to people, your physical health, or your mental well-being. Ask yourself, is what you're doing giving you the best chance to recover? And what's getting in the way of recovery? Focusing on the reasons to make changes can give your motivation to recover a boost. Making small changes to your activity levels and what you eat and drink can have a positive impact on your mood. You might need to work on improving the quality of your sleep by having a consistent bedtime and wake time, making sure you unwind before bedtime, and making sure you keep worries and your sleep separate. Some changes are harder and might mean dealing with cravings. The 3 Ds can help deal with this. Delay, distract, decide. Remember, all cravings reach a peak and eventually go down. Sometimes it can help to get advice and support in looking after your health. Seeing your GP for recommendations is a great first step. Whatever you do, looking after your health gives you the best possible chance of recovering from trauma.
Thank you, ma'am. That was an
Yes, Harshita.
Thank you, ma'am. That was an informative session. Now I request all the volunteers to drop your questions in the chat box.
From what we discussed today, if you have any questions, feel free to put that in the chat box. If I'm able to answer that today, I will do so. And if not, feel free to leave your email address with the volunteers along with the questions. I would be happy to send across an answer through the email. Do we have any questions? It looks like I've been pretty clear with the talk then.
Ma'am, there's the first question. Why is there not much awareness on social media addiction?
Yes, that's a good question, Soumya. Social media addiction, yes, is a
Sorry to interrupt.
sure, Tanushree.
Ma'am, can you please repeat the answer?
Sure, of course. So I was just mentioning that depression is like anxiety, another term that is loosely used today. So the most important factor to understand here is that person diagnosed formally with depression? And met with a clinical psychologist or a psychiatrist to be diagnosed with depression. If there is a diagnosis of depression, then it is very, very crucial to receive professional help to address these thoughts. That's one thing. The other side to it is if it is just these difficult thoughts that we're talking about, that you usually come across, then can deal with these thoughts is because a lot of times self-talk that we do are mostly irrational. They're a little far away from the reality. So in that case, it's important to challenge the self-talk or the thoughts that goes on in your mind and rationalize them. But again, something that I really want to highlight here is if the person is diagnosed with depression, please meet with a psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist. It is important to address that depression. It's going to be very difficult to address this without professional help.
Yashika Pandey asks, how does a lack of mental health professionals impact us as a country?
That's a very great question, Yashika. I think mental health professionals as such, the number is very low. I don't remember the exact statistics, but wrong. There are about, I think, 3 or 4 mental health professionals for about 10,000s or 20,000s of the population. So as you see, the number is very low. And the thing is, there is a lot of mental health concerns. Mental health, a lot of people go through mental health concerns. So if you see the statistics here, the number of professionals are very little. So for these many professionals to address such a huge population, it's going to be very difficult. And if you ask me how it impacts us as a country, we all do our individual contribution towards our nation, right? So if we are not in the right state of mind to rationalize or even be positive, it's going to be very difficult for us to do that individual contribution. And the development of a nation starts with individual contribution, right? That's how it becomes a collective contribution. So that's how I see the lack of mental health professionals affecting our. I hope I've answered that question.
Jemima Johnson asks, is it okay to consult psychologists who are her family members?
Thank you for that question. It's a very important question, but it is not okay to consult psychologists who are your family members because I think friends or family members, there's going to be a lot of one, ethical concerns, because we're not allowed to counsel our family members. Two, even if we are to do that, it's not going to be a transparent counseling session. So to put it in simple terms, it's not okay to do so. Maybe you can ask them for contacts, to guide you, but it's not okay to consult.
Merlin Manohar asks, does panic come under anxiety?
So that's again another great question. So panic again is how these physiological symptoms manifest, but they are two different things. Merlin, if you could leave me your email address along with that question, I would be happy to talk more on that, because panic and anxiety, they're two different things. There's a lot more to talk on that.
Bhagyashree Balaji asks, when a person suffers any mental illness, why is he or she not opting some professionals for help, rather attaches many stigmas and stereotypes to it?
Yes, thank you so much for that question, Bhagyashree. It is very unfortunate that all those who suffer from mental illness, either they do not have access to professional support, or a large amount of stigma associated with mental illness. So unfortunately, I would say we're not that backward at all. We have definitely come a long way in understanding mental health, but sometimes it is difficult for that person to go forward. Also because of, various other factors. They might be thinking what the family members might think around them, the friends around them think about them, or sometimes even financial concerns can be a problem, preventing them from reaching out for professional help. But I think the only way to go about this is to spread more awareness and normalize seeking help for mental health concerns.
How to console a friend who's depressed without triggering their emotions more?
Yes, that's a very important question. First of all, it's a difficult thing to do. It's not going to be easy to console a friend with depression. I'm very happy that you asked this question. It shows that you're very concerned about that friend. I think the best way to help that friend is to let them know that it is okay for them to be going through that. And two, to let them know that you are there for their support. Communicate that you are there for their support. So I think that can be done easily without triggering any of their emotions. But please remember that it's not completely under your control, and it's good to leave it to professionals, supportive of them.
Maulya Sri DJ asks, how to get rid of negative people around us?
Okay, that's a very interesting question, Maulya. First of all, I want to understand who these negative people are. How important are these negative people for you in your life? And what role do they play in your life? And if you think you want to get rid of them, always know that the decision is in your hands to do that. You can always choose to move away from them. That.
Vandita G. Shivakumar asks, how to help a friend to come out of depression?
Yes, Vandita, thank you for that question. But like I've been, mentioning through the Q&A, for someone who's going through depression, I know as a friend you're very concerned, and you want to be invested. But remember, it's difficult for you to help your friend come out of depression, and depression is an ongoing thing. It cannot be changed over time. It needs a lot of support. It needs a lot of effort, and please leave it to the professional to help your friend. I think that's the best help that you can do for your friend.
Rania Jacob asks, how do you differentiate between anxiety and panic attack with the symptoms being very similar?
Again, like I mentioned earlier, Rania, right? Rania, thank you for that question. But with panic and anxiety, it's difficult to get into it with such a short frame of time. I do not want to touch on that topic. But if you can leave your email address, I would be happy to give you more details on that, more resources on that for you.
Blessy Cletus asks, is there any way for a depressed person to help out themselves with the issues that they are going through because of depression?
Again, with depression, I'm just going back to my previous answer. In some cases, if it is, related to day-to-day activities with professional help, yes, they can. But otherwise, depression, again, like anxiety and panic attacks that we spoke about earlier, depression is something much more deeper than what we talk here. So it's going to be very difficult. It is important and crucial to have professional interventions.
Tanushree is asking, what is the best thing to do to feel better when you're feeling sad or upset about something?
Yeah, I would like to ask you that, Tanushree. What is the best thing that you would like to do to make yourself feel better? I think that would be only the right answer, because what makes me feel better need not make you feel better. So it's important for you to know what makes you feel better. If it is going out on a walk, go ahead and do that. If you think someone, go ahead and do that, but know that it differs from person to person. And like I said earlier during my talk, whatever you feel, it's not a permanent feeling. It changes with experience.
Soumya Naomi is asking, can ma'am repeat her answer for the social media addiction question, because she was cut off for a while because of the network?
Yeah. Yes, Soumya. So social media addiction is a huge concern, I would say. What I would recommend is for the organizers to organize a specific session on addiction, because even during my talk, I did mention how we are so dependent on social media. And the best way to address this addiction concern is to tackle the root cause. Now, what is making you dependent on social media? So that is important to address, and that will differ from case to case basis. So if you feel that somewhere that there is a concern about social media addiction, then it's important to reach out and seek help.
Kavya is asking how to deal with panic attacks during vivas and answering in a mass.
Okay. So panic attacks, anxiety attack. Again, like I said, it's going to be a whole different level of topic that we have to discuss. But to quickly leave you with some strategies, one is know that that moment you are safe. All this manifests when you constantly think about what is going to happen next, what we're not able to control, right? Even if we think about 15 minutes from now, we have a plan in mind. After this talk, this is what you're going to do, but you do not know until that moment comes in. So the best way is to stay focused in the moment, in the present moment. And even if you have any feeling of breathlessness, immediately try to take a deep breath. One breathing technique that I can leave you with is inhale through your nose for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 7 seconds, and exhale for 8 seconds. So deep breathing usually helps, and just trying to bring your attention to what is happening in the moment.
Ankita Joseph is asking how to deal with the person who constantly gaslights you.
Yes. I think that's gaslighting is a problem, very common. I think the best way to address this would be to confront the person in an assertive manner and let them know that this is what is happening. And if you still feel that your needs are not being met, then something that you can ask yourself is how healthy is that relationship for you.
Rania has sent a Gmail ID, ma'am.
Sure. If one of the volunteers could just, leave me with the email addresses and the questions the person has asked, I would be able to respond to them.
Okay, ma'am. Danyant S is asking, even though coming out of depression, sometimes we still feel very overwhelmed, sad, and difficult to express ourselves. What should be done at that time?
Yeah. So when we talk about overcoming depression, it does not mean that you will not feel sad. At the beginning of my talk, if you remember, I did different emotions, and as we go through our day-to-day life, we will come across different situations that will call for sadness, or that will call for happiness, all the different emotions, right? So it is important to acknowledge those feelings and allow yourself to feel them. It is important for you to feel sad because if say you did not score good marks in your exam, you won't feel happy about it. The most appropriate response would be to feel upset and sad about it. So it's important for you to feel that. I think that's the best way you can start addressing that.
Maulia Sri DJ is asking how to get rid on bad neighbors as they fight everything with us for silly reasons.
Okay. In such a situation, it's important that you communicate with your neighbors about what is concerning you and how these fights are affecting you. It's important that you let them know, because one thing is they might not be aware that, a person can feel this way. So it's important that you communicate with your neighbor and be open and express about your feelings. And if the question is how to get rid of it, remove yourself from such situations, any triggering situations. If you feel you would like to cut off from that neighbor, then know that the decision is within your hands. But on the other hand, if you want to improve the relationships, know that you can influence that to a large extent.
Ma'am, I guess that was the last question.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for all your questions. I think all these questions are very, very important. And I know I haven't touched on anxiety and panic. It's simply because it's a whole new topic in itself. There's so many questions around depression. I'm so glad that all of you all are so aware. Feel free to reach out to me in case of any questions that you may have further. I've left my email address with one of the volunteers, so feel free to connect with me over my email.
Ma'am, there's one more question. Rita? Rahul is asking how to forget things that were torturous in the past and it has affected you very badly.
Yeah, Rahul, that's a great question. Remember that, Rahul, it's difficult to forget your memories because your brain has the capacity to remember. You think you remember, you have a memory, right? So it's going to be very hard to forget that, but it's important to understand and address the feelings around these memories. One example is, I'm sure all of y'all would have had a physical accident somewhere in your life, right? So when you look at that physical accident, you still have the memory of that accident, or you may have a bruise from that accident. But the intensity of the pain that you have had from that accident does not exist anymore. You're hurt right now. So the same way, the trauma that we memories will be there, but how our emotions and how our mental health is affected changes over time. And if you think that there is some amount of trauma, it is important for you to address that with a professional, because simply forgetting that memory is us ignoring that.
Bharat Pratap is asking how to get rid of depression when we get up from long nap.
Bharat, I'm sorry, I'm afraid I don't understand that question. If you could explain that a little better, in what context, maybe I can help you. Or Bharat, feel free to reach out to me over my email address. If one of the volunteers could leave my email address in the chat box, then sure. Thank you. Thanks, Alan. Do we have any more questions?
Ma'am, I guess no, ma'am.
All right. But if there is anyone with any question that you were not able to ask on this chat box today, feel free to send me an email and I will get in touch with you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sure.
And thank you, everyone. Now, I would like to call Prerna for giving the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Harshita. Good evening to one and all present here. I am Prerna Nayak, NSS Secretary from Kristu Jayanti College, Autonomous, Bangalore. I am much grateful to deliver the thanking note on this beneficial section, and it is fair to say that the session was a great success. I owe much gratitude to our guest speaker, who made us relate ourselves with everything that takes to have a better well-being. I thank Dr. Father Victor Lobo, Principal, St. Joseph College, and Reverend Father Emmanuel PJ, Director, Jayanti and Extension Services, Kristu Jayanti College, for providing the platform and support. I thank NSS Program Officers, Mr. Prasad CN, St. Joseph College, and Dr. Sridhar PD of Kristu Jayanti College for their enormous support. Now, I would like to thank Presidents of St. Joseph College and my fellow coordinators of Kristu Jayanti College for their effortless contribution and overseeing of the event. To all the members of organizing team, you are thanked for your effective contribution. You, as participants, are thanked for your present and fruitful comments that has made a session a remarkable one. To conclude, I would like to quote, "Your mental health is everything. Prioritize it. Make time like your life depends on it, because it does." Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Prerna. Now, I request all the volunteers to fill the feedback form that is posted in the chat box. There are two links, one for Kristu Jayanti College and the other for St. Joseph College. Please do fill, and you have only 15 minutes to fill the form. After that, the form will be closed. Thank you.